Hello and welcome back to This Day in History. It is July 31st. Uh, Excuse me as I adjust here. It is July 31st, 2024. July 31st has a special uh, significance to me. Well, yesterday did too. It was in 1993, yesterday, that I got into a verbal spat with a very dear friend of mine, and that ended our friendship, and we have not spoke in 31 years. And I tried to make amends over the years, but she doesn't want to have anything to do with me, and I need to respect that. So wherever she is, wherever you are, I'm not going to mention your name out of respect to you. But wherever you are, just know that I wish you well. I truly do. And I've always hoped and prayed that you've had a good life, and that your friendship meant the world to me. And I'll never forget that. So that verbal spat was 31 years ago yesterday, 31 years ago today. About this time, I was about 2/3 of the way to Alabama. I left on this day in 1993 to go join the Army. I joined the Army, and it was this day that I left for the Army. Unfortunately, I didn't get to stay in the Army. The arthritis came back. I have arthritis in my knees. I've had arthritis since I was 10. And I hadn't had any flare-ups in 2 years, so I figured it was like growing pains and I'd outgrown it. But, the night that I got down to Fort McClellan, Alabama, which is just outside of the city of Anniston, Alabama, it's about 2.5 hours west of Atlanta. So it was the very first time I'd ever flown a plane, and being like deathly afraid of heights. That seatbelt, even to this day when I fly, I don't fly very often, but the few times that I've flown, that seatbelt never comes off. Unless I'm getting up to go use the facilities, that seatbelt never comes off. But at any rate, the special day for me is that this was the day that I actually entered life in the United States Army. And unfortunately, I was sent home 26 days later. They said, "You have arthritis. We don't need you. We're sending you home. Have a nice life." And felt like a dismal failure then. And yeah. So at any rate, that's my life. I just blew 3 minutes on my own personal history of this day. Sorry, whether you care or don't care. I wanted to give it an honorable mention, I suppose. But it's July 31st, 2024, and as you know, the year doesn't matter. It's about the history of the day. So let's get into the birthdays. We have a few of them. Some entertainers and, well, a couple entertainers of sorts. So 1912, we see the birth of Martin Friedman. Martin Friedman was an American economist. 1919, Primo Levi was an Italian writer and chemist, which is kind of an odd vocational coupling. A writer and a chemist. Maybe he wrote science journals or something. I don't know. I didn't really look into it much. 1921, we see the birth of Whitney M. Young Jr. Now, Whitney M. Young Jr. was an African American, best known for his spearheading the drive for equal opportunity for African Americans, not only in the industrial arena, but also in government service. He was a big proponent of this. While he was the head of the Urban League, which he held that post from 1961 to 1971. In 1932, we see the birth of John Searle, who was an American philosopher. 1962, we see the birth of Wesley Snipes, an American actor And you would know Wesley Snipes best from the Blade movies. He's been in a lot of other stuff. Money Train was another one that he did with Woody Harrelson. He was in New Jack City with Ice-T, and he played a drug kingpin in that one. He was in one of the Expendables movies, I believe. Phenomenal actor, and he's a legitimate badass. I mean, like the martial arts that he does on screen is stuff that he can do. I mean, he does have some training in Aikido, I believe, but phenomenal actor. I love his work. He hasn't done much lately, but I hear that there's a new Blade movie coming out and that he's reprising the role of Blade. So I hope it's not vicious rumor and that it's actual fact, because I'd love to see another Blade movie. I mean, I'm not really big into the whole vampire scene. I'm not really big into the zombie scene. Werewolves are okay. I'm just not really huge into the horror genre, but I love the Resident Evil series. Again, I don't like zombies. I just don't like the zombie genre at all. But I love the Resident Evil. And as far as vampires go, I love the Blade series. Not a big fan of, well, I've never watched Twilight, because realistically, my vampire should spontaneously combust in sunlight, not sparkle and glow. So, it just, no. But, happy birthday, Wesley Snipes. Also, 1965, we see the birth of J.K. Rowling, and that is the British author who penned the Harry Potter series books. So, happy birthday to J.K. Rowling. And that does it for the birthdays. On this day, in 1556, St. Ignatius of Loyola died in Rome. Now, who is St. Ignatius of Loyola? Well, he was the founder of the Jesuit order of the Holy Roman Catholic Church. So he was a pretty influential guy. That's why he was, in all likelihood, is probably why the church made him a saint, is because he founded the Jesuit order. Now, if you're like me and you study U.S. history and you know that there were other colonies other than English colonies here in what's now the United States. For instance, there was a Dutch colony, and I'd often wondered how and why it was that England took the monopoly of the colonies, the American colonies, and how it was that the Netherlands, the Dutch, let the British go take over those areas that were basically Dutch colonies. And, well, this answers my question. In 1667, it's the Treaty of Breda. It ended the Second Anglo-Dutch War, and the result of that is that it transferred the land that was dedicated to New Netherland, which is New York and New Jersey, to England. So they were no longer Dutch colonies. They were now British colonies, the English colonies, and they were under the full jurisdiction and rule of the English crown. So you learn something new every day. We fast forward to the 20th century. It's 1948. Harry Truman dedicates Idlewild Airport as the New York International Airport, which was then rededicated in 1963 to be JFK Airport, JFK International. Presumably because John F. Kennedy was our 35th president, who was assassinated on November 22nd, 1963. We fast forward to 2006, and due to declining health, Cuban leader and dictator Fidel Castro, he hands over power to his brother, Raul, who served as the acting Cuban president until he officially took over the post in 2008. Fidel Castro's health wasn't getting any better, and so it was a temporary thing. Then it became a permanent thing, and as far as I know, Raul is still in charge of Cuba today. I'm not really sure. I don't really keep up on that. However, Fidel Castro himself passed away in 2016. What do we say? We say good riddance to bad rubbish. He was not a nice guy. He was a dictator. He was a murderer. He was, he had people killed. It's why you see people fleeing Cuba in massive droves every year on cobbled together rafts, and many don't make it because of the conditions. I mean, Cuba's 90 miles from the southern tip of Florida, and they're cobbling together rafts to float across the ocean to get to America, so they can get their feet wet. That's the term. I guess that's what the term, like when they actually set foot on U.S. soil. They're here, and then they're border jumping. They're coming in illegally, but they're actually trying to escape an evil regime for a better life. And so then at that point they become like, they seek political asylum, and most of them get it, and they get to stay here. Unless you're 6-year-old Elian back in the Clinton administration, then, armed federal agents at gunpoint take the child away from where he's staying, because the father lives in Cuba, and the father has demanded that he have his son returned to him, even though the mother took the son and fled Cuba. And I think she died or something like that, and so the father invoked his parental rights and said, I want my son back. So there's a very famous picture of a federal agent holding an MP5 at the adult who's holding young Elian, and with one hand out saying, give me the child, while pointing the gun at the woman. Clinton caught a lot of hell for that one too, and deservedly so, I think, anyway, but that's just me. So 2012, Gore Vidal, who was an American novelist, he wrote a lot of like Western genre novels, I think, or just strange and obscure. He dies at the age of 86. Also on this day in 2012, Michael Phelps, American athlete, Olympian, captures his 19th medal, surpassing the record set by Soviet gymnast Larissa Latynina. He was an American swimmer. He was on the swim team, and she was a gymnast. But the fact that he has a record of 19 Olympic medals won in his time as being an Olympian, a U.S. Olympian. So, I mean, that's like no feat to shake a stick at. I mean, he's the GOAT for sure. He's the Olympian GOAT. 2019, American theater producer, director Harold Prince died at the age of 91, and he earned a lot of awards, a Lifetime Achievement Award, a lot of, are they Tonys for plays? He earned like 21 awards. Like, I think they're Tony Awards for theater, but he passed away at the age of 91. So today's special featured event, it is on this day, July 31st, 1971, that the lunar rover vehicle, you see that, vroom vroom, we see that, we think of, that was like Neil Armstrong and all that. All they did was just step foot on the moon. They hopped around. I think one of them hit a golf ball across the surface. I don't remember who did that, but the very first lunar vehicle is used on the moon. It's 1971. Astronauts James B. Irwin and David Scott, they were the first to deploy this four-wheeled, battery-powered, essentially dune buggy. And they're just, sitting there, they got film footage of them, driving this little four-wheeled vehicle around the lunar surface there. And it was at the Hadley-Apentine site, wherever that is. It's on the moon. So that's it. That is it for this day in history. So tomorrow we start off all new month, August 1st. So take care, be well. I got to go make my lunch, put my socks and shoes on, and go head on out the door and go to work. So as you can see, I'm in a different environment. I'm house sitting for my pastor this week, so you'll see this week anyway, me here in a nice quiet setting, just with the dog and the 2 cats, and yeah, good times. All right, that's it, folks. I gotta go. Be well, be blessed, take care, and we'll talk to you tomorrow. All right.